Good evening, everybody. We've got Lucille, Advocate Hendrik van Staden. We're having problems with load shedding in South Africa this evening. It sounds like it. Ian Ellis has had told me that he might have a problem with load shedding at this stage of the game. So we'll just take it from where we are at the moment. You've got Lucille is here this evening. She's going to help with the actual with the admin side, just to do the Q&As, and Yolanda is also here. I think some breaking news, just so that everybody can understand what's going on. We set out a set of questions for the liquidators, and I'll go through those questions just to give people time to come back on, for the panelists to come on, to see if Ian will be able to join us, and whether Christopher Roos was also going to join us this evening. We've been in discussion all day today to try to clarify certain points, which I will highlight during our discussion this evening. We've had a substantial declaration by the MTI estate, by the Liquidators office, signed off by Yvette Cooper on behalf of the Liquidators. It's actually quite a substantial document, and it does address a lot of the points that we've asked them about. We don't obviously agree with everything that's in there, but we will do our best to make it highlight to everybody exactly what the situation is in terms of that. Okay, so Anton Lee is also here this evening. He needs no introduction. He's the guy who created the debacle for all of us, liquidated this lot, and him and Advocate Hendrik van Staden have been involved right from the beginning. I do apologize for Ian Ellis at the moment. As far as I know, Ian is having problems with his. Let me just have a look if I've got an update message from Ian or not. But as far as I know, he's having problems here. He said he might join later or might not be able to join at all because there are problems with the actual. I haven't heard anything from Ian just yet, so I presume he's got a problem with his electricity. It seems to be in short supply in South Africa. Okay, everybody, we're recording this. We will do what we normally do when we're finished. We will publish this as soon as we can, get it out to everyone. I think I must just start. I want to just show you, go through the questions we posed to the liquidators, and why we got this reply. And I think I really appreciate the fact that the liquidators have made the effort and given us a quite a verbose reply. And I will comment from it this evening as well. I don't even think that Advocate van Staden's really had an opportunity to examine this. So if he has, then possibly he can also give us a reply to that. What I want to do, though, is let me first get the questions up for you so you can have a look, see at what the questions were which we posed to the liquidators. Just resetting my screens so that it is legible or not legible to everybody. I'm going to just go through those questions, and then in the vein of those questions, we will deal with questions that were put to us as well by Anton Lee and his party as well. So we'll try and answer on behalf of the liquidators where we can. Obviously, that is said tongue-in-cheek. We've had substantial discussion with Christopher Roos this evening around this whole matter, and I think that if we can agree to disagree, we can at least make progress. I feel we have made tremendous progress with the documentation which was supplied to us by the liquidators. Unfortunately, we haven't really had much time to examine it, but I will quote from it during this evening. So let me just up the screen here so everybody can see. I'm going to share my screen with you. These were the questions which were actually, these were the questions that were actually put to the liquidators. Is there an update on Johan Steinbach, who is incarcerated in Brazil? The answer to that at the moment is that the extradition order has been placed, and that the FBI in America also are trying to get him extradited. I don't know if anybody else has any new information as far as that is concerned. Hendrik, would you like to comment on that at all?
Good evening, Chris, and good evening to everyone. No, there's no update yet, and the best would be to wait for official information from the South African Police Service. And the same as that you've heard last is that apparently the Americans also wanted Mr. Steinbach to be extradited because they claim jurisdiction for everything that has got to do with the American dollar. And then also the South African Hawks would love to have Mr. Steinbach extradited to South Africa. So until further confirmation from these entities, we're just waiting and see what's happening.
Okay. What my next comment was, at present, it does not feel that the liquidators are acting in the interest of the creditors, net losers, or all the other interested parties. I do want to honestly say that if I read the documentation, which you will see tomorrow, they've got plans and there are certain things that they are discussing. I'm going to throw in a couple of thoughts later this evening, which I'd like everybody to think about, and maybe we can comment on those as well, in as far as working with the liquidators to get things resolved. I think a report back from our side on that. We've had substantial to and fro's with the liquidators about certain creditors. We've got a number of creditors now who have accepted their claim values that they have, and that has been settled on their accounts. In other words, they at least know what the rand value is, which they can claim, and we're in the process of finalizing those. Our database is working extremely well at the moment. We had a meeting on Wednesday with the creditors about the Cogs system, and at least now we have a common repository where people can submit their documents. Everybody can go and look at a file, and all the documents relating to specific files are in one place. So you know where your documents are, you know what's happened to your documents, and the liquidators know where your documents are, and they can look at those files as well. We've set all of this up, and we are interacting file for file with the liquidators in getting statements for individuals whose claims have now been not settled, obviously, but at least claim values have been settled. The liquidators have agreed claim values, and our investors have agreed those claim values. So we're getting consensus. And I'm going to keep stressing this, guys. If you want to have a claim, you have to submit the claim. You have to start working on the claim. Then you have the right to speak to the liquidators, and you have a right in the liquidation. If you don't do that, you are sitting on the fringes, and that is not in your interest. We need to get working with the liquidators to get these things finalized. And that's our objective, is to get that done for everybody who's interested in doing that. We are dealing with net winners as well. We're not looking, our interest at the moment is to clarify things as far as the net losers are concerned, but there's a lot of dissertation at the moment and a lot of kickback coming through because things were mishandled maybe originally. And we're trying to settle out these things so that we can get all of us working together to recover our funds from the people who ran away with the funds in the first place. Then the next point was, what say you in the following statement? The creditors are not being invited to the meetings of the creditors. We want transparency. We're asking very, very nicely that the liquidators include us in the meetings for the creditors. That includes GetaQuid, because we represent and work with a lot of creditors who have got their documents filed with us already on our Cogs our centralized organizational structure, and there's a lot of work going on with that at the moment. Why were the 417 inquiries necessary? We don't really have an answer to that yet. I think Yvette Cooper in her document did allude to that to an extent. And guys, if I've made a mistake, I haven't had a lot of time to study this. I only got it late this afternoon. But the answer is that they are obviously trying to get to the bottom of where all the Bitcoin has gone and who got paid out in terms of Bitcoin. Okay, almost all creditors who were forced to attend 417 inquiry reported that they were really badly treated and victimized by the persons holding the sessions. Was this attitude and victimization necessary? I think that's something they need to speak to, because at the end of the day, we as creditors are on the same side as the liquidators. Ostensibly, we are on the same side. I don't know, Hendrik, I think maybe you should speak to that as well. We are ostensibly, they are representing us with the people who have defrauded us, and we want that settled out.
Chris, one of the responsibilities of liquidators, and that is to make sure that creditors' best interests are served, but also the interest of the shareholders. In this case, the main focus will be on the investors, and that is the responsibility. And if they fail in their responsibility, they must be held liable for it. So I'm sure they will be treating very carefully when they do certain actions, as they are being watched by various people to see if they indeed follow the responsibilities. Unfortunately, in South Africa, there's been a lot of liquidations that have been going very astray, and they are reported in the media, so people can go and read about it. So I surely hope that these liquidators understand the urgency of this case, but also the magnitude thereof. And I just want to remind them about the responsibility they have towards the investors, and to ensure that they act in the best interest and that justice indeed is served, and not perceived to have been served.
Okay. Okay, I think that what I want to say here as well is I think it would be in everybody's interest, in our interest as investors and as in our interest to recover these Bitcoin as soon as possible, that we align ourselves on those things we can align ourselves with the liquidators in recovering these funds. And to me, there are two parties only. There are two main parties. They have divided us into three parties, and I disagree with that. I think we are only two parties. There are those people whose intention was to defraud. And those people, they are very clear. We know who they are. They are Johan Steinberg, Marx, those people. They were sat at the top. They knew that what they were reporting to the investors was bogus. It didn't exist. They were bringing investors and marketers were brought into this scheme unknowingly with false information. So there are those people whose intention it was to defraud. Then there are those people who were brought in, and I include marketers, which might be net winners, and I include all the other investors who came in interested. Those are two different categories within the second category. So you have one category, which is those people whose intention it was to defraud. And then you have those people that were brought in because they were trying to do something good for themselves, their friends, their cats, their dogs, their children, whoever else they wanted to have share in this trading program. It wasn't their intention. The second category, the investors and marketers category, I don't believe that, as far as I know, they didn't know that there was a fraud going on, because all the information they were given, this whole way this thing was painted, it was a real trading scheme. And the way it was developed, nobody could get to that it wasn't a real trading scheme because of the lies they were told by the people whose intention it was, who were going to do the fraud. Have I got that? Does that clarify that better, Advocate Consultant? Do you agree that that is the basis that this whole thing should be treated on?
Chris, I cannot speculate, but I can confirm that they divided the investors in three different groups, being the net equity winners, and that's people that scored a lot of it. Then there's a group of members who were net equity losers, who invested but did not withdraw anything. And then they've got the grouping which they classify as people who did deposit funds in MTI, but who also withdrew, although they were net equity losers. And something very concerning is, if I read that document on face value that was issued by the liquidators, it's starting to have a flavor of Creon coming forward, as that there would be seemed that the intention is to have members to repay funds that they've received, even if they were net equity losers, before they will be able to stake a claim. Now, the South African law do make provision therefore, but one have to see if actually it's in the best interest of justice, if indeed it is allowed to continue, as many people might not be in the situation where they are able to repay funds to the liquidators which are received out of MTI, and then to instigate a claim afterwards. I'm also aware, and I've been reading, that a lot of people are complaining that they actually deposited funds in MTI that didn't withdraw. Then they withdrew when a certain gentleman by the name of Mr. Uri Guru appeared on a YouTube video, and they withdrew their funds. And then they redeposited it again because confidence were installed in MTI. And in the end of the day, those people would fall under what is called Class 2, which might not necessarily be in the best interest of the creditors, although, as I said, South African law do make provision for the liquidators to take action in that regard. But that is based on the face value of the documentation that what we have seen. And I'm sure, Chris, that's the same concern you're holding?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that there is my biggest concern is definition, and I will take everybody through definition this evening. I've done a bit of study on this, and I'm not qualified to actually make decisions on this, but I've had a look at the definition of what the Bitcoin is in terms of the, let's say, the chartered accountant practices within South Africa. And I think that we need some input from those people in terms of the law that should be applied as far as the actual liquid assets are concerned. But I will speak to that just now. But I think the important thing here is that there are, from my from my position and what I've seen over the last couple of days, and everybody I've spoken to, including Mr. Henry Honeyball's team as well, is that the way the liquidators are treating people at the moment is not in a way that we can support them, because the people are feeling like criminals, and it's not that they are criminals, it is that they are being treated as if they are criminals. And I've got lots of complaints from people about that they are really being treated very badly in these inquiries.
Chris, I haven't been part of the inquiries, but if I can just add something, and all my comments I make is purely based on face value of documentation, because I'm not into speculation. But if our interpretation of this documentation is wrong, it would be good if the liquidators, unfortunately none of them are on the call, I understand they were invited, it would be good if the liquidators could clarify the concerns that is being seen, because as this is an international case, and it's not good if some things are perceived to be different in South Africa and some things are perceived to be right in another country, because we are dealing with an international situation here. So if they would clarify if we are interpreting anything wrong based on the face value, it will be good. But as we say, Chris, we are just reading the documentation, and you have been privy to having meetings with people I haven't had meetings with. And if that is the case, that there is people who's very unhappy, it would be good to bring it under the attention of the liquidators, and they should take note thereof, because they are working for the creditors. They are not there to just make money for themselves. Yes, at the end of the liquidation, they are entitled to funds, and there's a lot of people making vast amounts of funds in the liquidation, most probably on fees and on advice. But to make sure that there's a clear line of communication is also of the utmost importance, to ensure that South Africa can be perceived as being an open, transparent country, and even the legal system and the workings of the administration of justice and the legal processes associated with it are also deemed just and transparent.
Okay. Yeah, I fully support what you've just said, and I want to say this directly tonight, and I believe I speak for everybody that we've been involved, the greater majority of people that we've been involved with, that the people just want this thing solved in a fair and just way. And people are quite happy to come to the table and declare where they got their, how they got their funds, what happened, what has come out, and various other things. There's been revelations that we were not aware of, where funds were paid directly to Johan Steinberg as well, and this has also come to the table. Now, those sort of things are obviously need to be brought to the table as well, and see whether there is a valid claim in terms of those things. But those are the sort of issues that have come up. But most of the people, I just simply want a really simple way to solve this thing. And I would say that in the second scenario, where people took money out and put it back in again, I absolutely agree with you. But I would still prefer that if the liquidators would work with us, so that we have two different definitive categories of people: those people that worked with the intention to defraud, and those people who were just simply marketers and investors. Because I really believe that there is a distinction in how those people should be treated. Obviously, if you were a marketer and you withdrew and you don't want to work with the liquidators to settle your accounts, then they should take everything possible, all the sticks out, take out all the sticks and get the funds back, so that the creditors, the investors and creditors can be paid. Then I just want to carry on here to the next point. Why was it necessary to issue interim order? That is quite well covered in the document, and the reply is also Yvette Cooper in the document actually goes to class 1, class 2 and class 3 investors and addresses that point in 1.10 of her document. And we believe that there 1.9.2 in the document, which speaks to loser investors who received returns but did not profit from the scheme, we believe that there's certain problems with these things. I think that if they were to publish that they will do a credit debit account for those people, because it's a fiat current that needs to be converted to fiat currency, then that can be solved without a repayment. So the point you spoke to, I think I just want to go through these last points, and then I want to take everybody through something which has come to that needs to be highlighted, and to explain something to ourselves and to other people as well. I think I should do that now. First of all, the problem that we have is that the there is an organization which is called IFRS, and this organization is in fact an international accounting standard organization. In other words, they work on the accounting standards for international, across all as an international accounting organization, which South Africa subscribes to. So in other words, the way accounts are done is governed by the IFRS across the world, and South Africa actually subscribes to this organization. Here is the South African IFRS page, and here is the way that these are the standard rules that should be applied. Now, the question is, how does the IFRS regard Bitcoin? That is really the question. So if you go back and you look at that, you look at tangible and intangible assets, and your problem that you have is that the IFRS actually does not regard Bitcoin as a tangible asset. It is regarded as an intangible asset. And that's the problem that you have. Bitcoin is, IFRS interpretation defines cryptocurrencies as intangible assets. Now, the moment you define something as an intangible asset, it is valued at the time of sale. In other words, at the time of transaction. So the value that you place on an intangible asset is at the time of transaction. Now, you can't, when you do the accounts, you can't do the accounts with Bitcoin and fiat currencies. Fiat currencies are tangible assets because they are governed by certain countries and certain places. And this is where I think the big dilemma lies. I believe that this needs to be really well clarified on what is the point of transaction of these assets, the Bitcoin thing. So that's why, in the one sense, from what I understand, they want to work with what you put in as an investment in terms of the Rand value. Now, there's an excellent website which actually gives you the Rand value in terms of what the Rand value was during the time period that Bitcoin was being traded. I just want to open that up properly for you guys. And then you can see that there is a specific Rand value at the time that the Bitcoin can be interpreted in terms of Rand, okay? And it's the transaction date. That can be brought back to a fiat currency. So I think that one of the problems that we have at the moment is that these definitions are not clear, that the definitions in terms of the way that the currency is to be treated, you can't turn around and say to people, well, you took out 5 Bitcoin, you need to replace 5 Bitcoin. Well, at what value? You took out 5 Bitcoin, and at that time they were worth whatever million Rand it was at that time. 5 Bitcoin in today's terms is 352,000 Rand per Bitcoin. So you're looking at 1.6 million, more or less, in Rand value that you took out of the account. Now, that is what you took out of the account. What did you put in the account? Maybe you put in 2 million. So you have a deficit still in the account in monetary terms of a certain value, looking at what you put in originally. If you originally put in 2 million in Bitcoin and whatever the values were, and then you took out in Rand value, you can't now say, well, look, you took out 5 Bitcoin, but you had 5 Bitcoin left, and now you have to repay 5 Bitcoin. No, transaction value. You've got to get this to a standard accounting principle. And I believe that this needs to be clarified in terms of what the IFRS interpretation is for Bitcoin and how these assets should be dealt with. Now, that's something that I will address and put to the liquidators so that we can get clarification on that, and so that this whole process can be clarified. Now, I believe that is part of what they are trying to get from the court. And obviously, this case will be heard at the end of October. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Advocate Hendrik van Staden. I know this is something new that I'm throwing in your direction.
Chris, as the court case is still ongoing, I'm not going to give any comment in that regard. We are aware what the prayers were, so I'm not going to give any comment on that. And we'll just have to wait and see what's the decision of the judge, and if there's any people who bring in any opposition to the plans of the liquidators to have this made a final order of court.
Okay, So at this stage of the game, we are talking to everybody to help us to present this in a format to have our documents presented against this provisional order, which has been requested by the liquidators. So I realize that is something we have to look at. I would also like us to discuss at some time, the current return dates. The return dates that I have from Yvette Cooper is, I think that the main court case that took place on the 31st of May 2022, the return date for that is the 8th of November, where further evidence have been enrolled for further argument on the 8th of November 2022. Is that correct?
Chris, I don't have the documentation in front of me, but it does sound correct. If you've got documentation in front of you, and that's a date stated on it, then
I'll just read it. Yeah, I'll read this. Oral argument was concluded in the declaration application on 31st of May 2022, and judgment, which has been reserved, is still awaiting. The matter has now been enrolled for further argument on the 8th of November 2022. Okay, so it would be really useful if we could get all the parties together and agree on how an intangible asset should be dealt with in terms of the standards of the IFRS in this liquidation. I think that this is important. I don't know how important this is, but I feel that this is important because these are standard accounting practices. And I will address this with the liquidators as well. Okay. All right, then we can just move on to the rest of the questions we had discussed in doing the evaluation. The credit is proportional due to where the factors that determine the asset is what we've just spoken to. Why is the interim order then focusing on Bitcoin, the repayment, when the creditor's participation value is determined equivalent fiat value in Rand? This is all part of that thing we've just discussed. How long before the interim payment and payments can be made to the investors? And Yvette Cooper in her document answered that for us. But it goes along with the questions on the SARS as well. She actually took extensive time to answer these last three questions which we had for them, which is about the SARS, and we will publish this so that everybody can have a look at it. Basically, at this stage of the game, this is all up in the air. The SARS claim has to be discussed. She makes the comment that there was illegal practice and they didn't submit their tax returns. MTI didn't submit their tax returns. I'm not sure about that. As far as I know, MTI hadn't been going long enough to have submitted their tax returns. So I don't know if it was then due. Obviously, they will have to have these arguments with SARS, and I think at the end of the day, they'll just have to report back to us on that. But obviously, I'm going to just leave that at this stage of the game. I will post this document so that everybody can have a look at it. Okay, that's those at the moment. I want to make I want to just bring everybody back here to where we are at the moment. And I want to also say, please, guys, we really do need your support. We will put out an email tomorrow with this documentation. We've also had sight of one of the replies from solicitors in regard to this temporary declaration, which is to be answered at the end of October. And I'm in the process of I will still just ask them if I can publish that as well, because there are some really good points made in that document as well. Okay, so that's where we are right now. Advocate Hendrik van Staden, do you want to speak to anything else at this stage of the game?
No, Chris. There's nothing particular. It's just the concerns that both we've discussed earlier, and then also that we need to get clarity on many of the outstanding things, and we will be looking at what the court's decisions will be in the case, and also how further things develop. But it will be good if communication is open towards the from the liquidator side to the investors, because I am aware people are feeling sometimes that there's not enough direct communication, and that's why I'm very glad to see that at least they've answered in writing to the questions that were posed to them by GetaQuid. Okay.
Yeah, I have here that we need some sort of a update on accounts as well. I had Anton post, please can they provide a complete statement of account. After tonight's meeting, if on the Q&As, we will go through the Q&As and update those questions. We will also keep those questions going so that we give the liquidators an option, give them the opportunity to be able to answer these questions for us as well and keep us updated. I want to just say to everybody that those people who are members on the Cogs system, make sure you've claimed your Cogs your Cogs profile on your mobile phones, and that you've uploaded all your documents. We have got quite a few people who have joined recently whose documents need to be taken into the repository, and we are communicating directly with everybody through the ticketing system. I get a lot of people who try to communicate in other means with me. I cannot deal with 100 different platforms at once. We've set up the ticketing system for those people who are members, which is answered almost on a daily, I say almost on a daily basis. Sometimes things get a little bit hectic, but the ticketing system is working really well at the moment. And also the actual Cogs app. We are dealing with a lot of inquiries through the Cogs app as well, so to our members. Please, people, if you have a problem, there is always WhatsApp and Signal, which we've got a mobile number for, which you can also be working with. So please, could you try to use those formal ways that we communicate. We can't deal with 100 platforms at once. We focus in on a platform, and then we work with that specific platform. Okay, so Anton, I will post this. I will post your question and query as well. When we sent out the documentation last night, we sent out the documentation, the inquiries last night to the liquidators, and we haven't had time to update those, and they haven't had time to reply to it. I do want to say thank you very much to them, and I think that was this document which they've produced on our questions so far has been well researched and well replied, and you guys will have sight of that tomorrow. We will post that with some comments and thoughts as well from our side tomorrow. We will post that and get it out to everybody out there. Okay, do we have any Q&As at the moment that we need to deal with, Yolanda? Have we been very thorough tonight?
You have been very thorough, yes. We haven't had that many questions. I've had somebody say, I'm 74 and getting senile, but what is Cogs? But yes. Okay,
so just so that everybody knows what Cogs is, our Cogs system is a central document repository system where your file is kept, and you set that up with us. You sign on, you set that up, and you post all your. Cogs is a central depository system where we keep all the documentation which is necessary for your claim, and we work with the liquidators so that we can have sight of what your documents look like, so that we can help you prepare the documents properly so that your claim can be submitted. We then submit from the Cogs system. We take the information, we summarize it, we send it to the liquidators. The liquidators look at it. They come back with queries. We might come back with queries to you. We then get a claim value. That claim value that they offer for that set of documents or for that claim that you've submitted then goes to you for approval. And once you've approved it, you know how much you're in for in the payout. Yvette Cooper in this document clearly defines as well a calculation and payment of dividends is in this document as well. And you guys can read that through. And then when we have our next webinar, if there are any questions or queries with regard to this, what we will do is we will post on the website after we've posted this document a inquiry form where you can add anything you wish to make further inquiries with. Okay. Advocate van Staden, I think that's about it. Is there anything else on the Q&A at the moment? There's a question here from Harvey in Mostek. Can you edit your files in the Cogs system? You can't edit your files in the Cogs system, but you can reload your files. So you can let us know if there are any files that you want to have changed. And then what you can do, or you can just simply upload new files and date them as new files. And then just let us know and we can remove any old files. We can do that. Okay, what is the reality of actual payouts on accepted claims with ongoing court cases? Okay. Guys, this is really simple, okay? I want you to really think about this. If you don't submit a claim, you have no claim. If you don't pursue your claim, if you don't do something about getting a claim value, you don't have a claim. And in actual fact, if you haven't proven your claim, you actually do not have a voice. Advocate van Staden, can you speak to that? If I'm a creditor and I don't submit my claim, do I really have a voice in this whole transaction?
No, you don't. So that's why it's very important to, if you are a net equity loser, that you register your claim, because it's a responsibility of the liquidators in terms of legislation that they are there to work in the best interest of creditors. So meaning that if you don't use the opportunity you have to submit claims, once people start getting dividends, you will be stuck and might not even be able to submit a claim at a later stage if you miss the bus.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everyone to submit their claims as soon as possible to ensure that the liquidators are able to establish exactly how many claims there are and what's the value thereof. But Chris, I understand you guys have been communicating with the liquidators.
Yes.
Are your systems integrated now?
Yeah, we've got communal grounds to work on, and we've got substantial amount of claims that have already been resolved. In other words, people who submitted their documents, we discussed it with the liquidators. Some have settled on the accounts that they've given, but we have others that we are negotiating on behalf of the creditors, where the settlement amount which the liquidators offered isn't what the claimant wants. And it's just most of the times it's just to clarify why there is a discrepancy, and then to get the people together so that we can resolve it. But at least it's being highlighted. That's the important thing. So when we work through the Cogs system, then it helps us to be able to settle the amount which is outstanding on the actual claim.
I haven't got anything else, but I do think that you guys are doing a thorough job. And yes, I'm very happy that the liquidators are at least communicating in some way and coming to the party despite some concerns that is still with regards to the definitions that I do apply to the various classes.
Ongoing court cases. What is the reality of payout? I think we've covered that. I want to also say that we've got, if you do not have representation at this stage, there's two things that is really important for everybody. Do not participate in anything with the liquidators without proper legal representation. I think that's really, really important. If anybody needs legal representation, please contact us so that we can set that up for you. It's minimal cost, and it's really worth your while to go in there with people who have been to these interrogations and know how to handle these interrogations. And if you go without legal representation, you are going to be overwhelmed. That's your problem. It's not a question of, it's just not you're out of your element, and you do need to have proper legal representation. And that can be easily set up, very quickly set up for you, and we will keep you covered all the way through, and it's important to do that. If in the end of the day we can get everybody to work together, then we can get this whole system set up and the payments made, because in the end, these accounts will settle out, and interim dividends can be paid as well. But it will be those people who submitted their claims. The problem that we had in the beginning is we had a whole lot of net winners that were running around and saying, don't submit your claims, don't submit your claims, as if they were protecting themselves. Because remember, the more investors that submit their claims, the more the really big winners have to pay back. If nobody submits claims, the only people who've got claims are the net winners. And that's not going to work. So if by not submitting your claims, you are actually disadvantaging yourself. You need to submit your claims we would like you to submit your claims so that we can help you get them resolved, and so that we can get a foot in the door, and so that we can speak to the liquidators and ask them to help us to clarify certain things. It all makes a lot of sense if we do it properly and do it in a proper fashion. But by not submitting your claims, you're actually working right into the hands of the Marxists and Johann Steinbachs and all of them. They don't want you to submit your claims. I don't think any payouts are going to happen while the court cases are still going on, because part of the application that was sent for this interim order, the interim order is actually there to define these things of tangible, intangible assets and time of transaction. And in actual fact, I think that, well, this is me talking, but I think that there is an accounting principle that needs to be resolved, and that is what the declaration should be in the court case. I also think there is merit, absolute merit, for dividing this whole thing into two different categories: those that intended to defraud and those that were just purely marketers and investors. And I will be pushing for that we ask for a redefinition, and then how the parties should be dealt, how the different parties and investors should be dealt with. I also think this thing in the South African law that you have to repay first before you can claim, which Advocate Hendrik van Staden highlighted, needs to be addressed as well, and that there should be a credit debit system on that thing. There should be a way to credit and debit that because if you're talking with intangible assets, it's just a question of transaction date and value at transaction date that you can work with. Anyway, okay. I think Advocate Winston, I think that's about it at the moment. Is there anything else, Yolanda, that you picked up in the Q&A at this stage of the game?
Not really. You have not made any reference to the webinar that had people going, and that was went on last week. Not a GetaQuid webinar, the other one.
Oh yes, one of the questions that came up, which I think is really important for people to realize. Originally, I'm going to talk to this. We've drawn up a document which we will put out. Originally, when this whole system started, we opened up this website with GetaQuid under the name RAG, R-A-G, Recovery Action Group. And what happened was, after the liquidation, the provisional liquidation was applied for in December of December 2021. When the 2020, yeah, December 2020, when that application was applied for, and we went through the whole court stories up until January, and then the provisional liquidation was put in place. We went out and tried to find which were the best liquidators to appoint. We recommended these liquidators, which we currently have at this time. And then once the liquidators were appointed, the provisional liquidators were appointed, we withdrew. RAG withdrew, GetaQuid took a bit of a backseat, and we didn't really get involved after that because I regarded our job as done. But when we got to December 2021 and no creditors had been approved, a lot of people came back to us and said, can you help? So we set up this non-profit organization to get going. Now, what happened in the meantime from that time was Henry Honeyball and his team took over RAG, but they didn't take it over as RAG. They took it over as RAC, Recovery Action. What's the C stand for? Can't think of it now. RAC, Community. They took it over as RAC, okay? And they split off because we had a difference of opinion. They didn't agree with what I was trying to do at that stage, and they went their own way and created all sorts of other groups which they carried on with. And the webinar that was held last week was the RAC, that was Henry Honeyball's team, and his group had a webinar last week. Now, apparently, I was informed that one of the questions that came out, how is GetaQuid associated with RAC? We are not associated with RAC. We do exchange information. I've spoken to Henry today about this document that has been put out by Yvette Cooper as well, and he's also received it, and he's circulated that amongst these people as well. But his approach is obviously from a different point of view, and his approach has been that people should not submit their claims. Well, I think there's no point in that, because if you are, the liquidators have all the records that MTI created, and they've got the back office. If your name is on that back office, your name is there, your email address is there, your telephone number is there, and there's a whole lot of banking information from you as well that they've got. So by not submitting, you're not hiding. You're just creating a negative position for yourself. My approach is that, as I spoke to Christopher Roos this afternoon as well, my approach is that we should play open cards, open books, and try and do this as amicably as we possibly can, because there's no point in fighting over this money. You either owe money or you are owed money, one of those two situations, and you're not going to be able to hide. It's just going to cost you a lot more money, and everybody a lot more money if you hide. The more transparent we are, the more equitably we can do this, including all these court cases that we're involved in at the moment. I hate these things that we've got at the moment. I feel that we need to sit around a table and just clarify this whole thing and sort it out. And then you've got two camps. You've got the camp of the people who are going to try and resolve this, and you've got the camp of the people who are running away with the money. Those are the two camps. There are no other camps. You're either going to sit and help resolve it, you want your money back, or you're going to have to pay some money back and you're going to get some money back, or you're going to try and run away. Those are the two camps. There are no other camps here. And then in the meantime, we've got the liquidators as well. And obviously, the more we fight, the more they capitalize on this whole situation. So that is also not a good point, a good position to be in. So we are trying to work for the net losers. Our objective is to work for the net losers. But in the meantime, there are a lot of winners, net winners, who are helping the net losers in this whole process of the Cogs system. They might be a net winner, but they've got a bunch of net losers who they are helping to get their documents submitted because they brought them into the accounts in the first place. And we are working with those people as well to help them get their claims resolved. And I believe there is a room here to talk to the liquidators and say, look, this guy took out 500,000 Rand. In the meantime, he lost 250,000 Rand. and we need to have a debit credit situation. So I believe there is room for that. But whether we'll get that resolved or not is something we'll need to speak to at a later stage. Okay. Okay. Is there anything else, Yolanda? Is that okay? Was that what your question was?
Yes. What I just wanted to clarify, as I understand it, although the liquidators have a list of what went on in the back office, so they ostensibly have a list of all the investors, they are not going to work through the list and contact the people and say, hi, are you owed money? Can we get you on the list? So if people do not submit their claim and say, I am owed money, nobody will know about it, or nobody will react to that, and their claim won't be cannot be evaluated or presented to the master for approval. So if they do not present their claim or make a claim, they won't get anything.
Yeah. Look, what will happen is the liquidators are going to work with, if you're a net loser or you're marginal, the liquidators are going to basically work with your claim if you submit it. If you're a net winner, and depending on how much of a net winner you are, the liquidators are going to go after you. That's the way it's going to work. Because the liquidators aren't under an obligation for you to submit a claim, but they are under an obligation to recover the funds. That's the difference. Okay. So if you're a net winner and you're hiding and thinking, I'm not going to, you can be in serious trouble. Advocate van Staden, do you want to speak to that at all?
Well, Chris, all I can say is that there's very legislation which make provision for the liquidators to retain, to recover funds that was paid in various stages prior to the liquidation of a company, so they are within their rights to recover it. And I would encourage everyone, it would be in the best interest to rather work together with them than to fight them the whole time, to see if things can be amicably solved. And if there is points of contingent, rather speak with them and see if a middle path can be found, which will be acceptable for both parties.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my contention as well. And that is what we have been doing. And we have been facilitating that procedure. So we have got ways of facilitating that procedure. So if anybody needs our assistance with any of that, please come to us and let's try and resolve it. Okay. Okay. Anton, you just want to know how much money these guys have got of ours and when we're going to get it back, right?
Evening, Chris. Yeah, that's the question I had, because the liquidators proceed and they've got all these court dates and they've got people to pay. So at the end of the day, with everything they are doing, they are busy wasting our money that we could have get back. And then a second question that I have is, are there any cutoff date yet? I can't remember. Someone asked me, are there any cutoff date yet to submit claims?
No, I doubt if there'll be. I doubt if there's going to be a cutoff date until the court cases have been finalised. I mean, in actual fact, this if you look at the nature of this interim court order, it is actually a declaratory. It's a request for a declaratory order, and once obviously there's a lot of argument whether it should have been submitted while the other court case was not finalised. And that is still, I mean, this is a precedence as far as I know, this creates a precedence in law, because the other case also addresses a whole lot of these questions which were put in this. So maybe what needs to happen is these two court orders need to be consolidated under one or two judges or whatever they want to do, and then consolidate the answer, because it has to be a declaratory order. We need a declaratory order on how to deal with these different people. Okay, I see a cat has joined our conversation this evening. Okay. All right, guys. Anton, I will definitely speak. I will ask if we can have a statement of account somewhere along the line, a clear statement of account of where we are at the moment. But also a statement of account, because in my discussions with Christopher Ruiz this afternoon, one of the things that came out, there are a whole lot of Bitcoin we are not even aware of at this stage of the game, which have been which still need to be tracked down and found. So that is also something that needs to be resolved. But the possibility of an interim payout is very real once these court cases have been settled, because there is substantial funds available from the sale of what they got from FX trading. Okay, so that's where we are, more or less. I'm just going to go around the table. Lucille, do you have any words of wisdom for us, or are you good? Are you okay? Yolanda, anything else?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Advocate van Staden?
No, there's nothing that I can add.
Okay. Anton, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I've got no questions. I would just like to say that at the end of the day, if you're a net winner or net loser, I can see comments on group. We are there to assist anyone, net winner or net loser.
But our interests are with those with the net losers. I mean, that is our prime objective, is to help our prime objective is to get this settled as quickly as possible in everybody's interest. That's really what we want to try and do. And try and get rid of all the difficulties and aggro that's going around this whole transaction at this stage of the game. Okay, and I'm going to end this by saying thank you very much to Yvette Cooper for the work that she put into this document. Don't agree with everything that's said here, but she made a sterling effort to address the questions she could address, and we'll put this out to everybody tomorrow. Thank you so much for that. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for this evening.